Andrés Pastrana.
Let me begin by thanking the University of Ottawa for the invitation to speak here today. Since my election last August, wherever I go as part of my dual mission to increase understanding about our peace process and promote investment and trade, I always enjoy the chance to visit a university and talk with students and faculty who are often the toughest audiences. The University of Ottawa, since its founding as the College of Bytown 150 years ago, has stood for very clear principles: to promote diversity and defend multiculturalism, to advance the cause of women generally, and to expand contacts with the rest of the world. You have fulfilled of these and much more. What has become the largest bilingual university in North America is also an important center for high learning with an international reputation for excellence. Your increased interest in Colombia and hope for even more exchange than already exists. I have come here to talk about peace in particular, about my government's efforts to bring an honorable end to an armed insurgency that has raged in Colombia for almost 40 years now. The prospects has never been better. Our nation will never stronger. Colombians are more than just tired of the conflict. Their desire and determination to work for peace led to the largest voter, as you said, turnout in Colombia's history, first for a national referendum for peace and then in the presidential elections. My government's mandate is unprecedented. The people have spoken loud and clear. They want peace, and they want the wounds to heal, and they want the country to be reunited. This is not an easy task. If the recent successes regarding peace, whether in Central America, Northern Ireland, or the Middle East, teach us anything, is that the process is never smooth. The setbacks are common. Yet, they also teach us that with determination and patience, resolve and vision, the peace is always within one's grasp. Each peace initiative also receives substantial international assistance, both in the political support and material to foster development and facilitate trade. In any lasting peace process must be accompanied by economic growth, growth that can reach all of our citizens, for where there is poverty, isolation, and neglect, one will find the seeds of revolt. Before turning specifically to the peace process, let me take a few minutes to give you a sense of what is precisely Colombia. In this age of sound bites and 30-second spot on the nightly news, we run the risk of never moving beyond the media stereotypes. As a former journalist, I understand the need for cuts and quick summations, but as president, it worries me to see so much worthwhile news never reaching its audience, especially with respect to Colombia, where the emphasis is almost entirely on drug trade. Without questions, this is an issue of the greatest importance and one that my administration has acted determinedly upon. Illegal drugs pose one of the greatest threats to the world, and we must be vigilant in our efforts to win the war against them. Yet saying Colombia is all about drugs is like saying that Canada is all about ice hockey, an absurd assumption. I know that. Colombia is the largest, is South America's oldest and strongest democracy. Our institutions tried and tested over nearly 200 years. Many of our presidents were poets as well as politicians, and we have developed a great respect for rhetoric and for the language and philosophy of government. Geographically, we are a Caribbean and Pacific, Amazonian and Andean. Our three major cities, Bogotá, Medellín, and Cali, are also Andean, although each sits at a different altitude and has a distinct climate. We are abundantly rich in natural resources, in petroleum, coal, iron ore, and nickel, not to mention precious and semi-precious metals. We are the world's second largest producers of cut flowers, as well as coffee, and in terms of our environment, we are one of the world's most biodiverse nations. 10% of the Earth's species are found only in Colombia. We have also earned an enviable economic reputation, having never defaulted on a loan or failed to honor a debt. We have not suffered a year of negative growth since 1932. This is all the more remarkable when one considers the insurgency. We have been blessed with so much and been able to achieve so much, yet we will suffer from this terrible conflict. All of this only re-emphasizes the need to achieve peace and points to even greater possibilities. The insurgency roots go back over 50 years. The defining moment was the assassination in 1948 of Jorge Eliezer Gaitán, a Liberal Party leader who gave voice to many of the grievances of the less fortunate. After this tragic event, violence has lasted for decades. Valuable efforts for reconciliation were developed between major political parties. My father, Misael Pastrana, as President of Colombia, was a prominent actor of this patriotic effort. In the last decade, peace agreements were reached with several guerrilla groups that have since then participated in the democratic system. Such is the case of the M19, an urban-based movement that since 1989 has played an active role in our society, helping to draw up our new constitution in 1991 and having several members in Congress and in other positions. They have also been very supportive of our peace initiative in recent months. The two major existing guerrilla groups, the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia, called FARC, the oldest and by far the largest, and the Army of National Liberation, the ELN, are rural in origin. My government objective is to negotiate with both organizations. Just 4 weeks ago, in fact, when the peace process seemed to be stalled, I met for the second time with the leaders of the FARC, with his commander Manuel Marulanda, in an isolated jungle retreat. There, we agreed on several critical things. First, that the peace process needs a push forward, which we both gave it. Second, that Colombia's territory and sovereignty are not negotiable. Third, that we both supported the need for a crop substitution programs to provide farmers with a real alternatives to coca and to poppy. Fourth, that the time was right to set an agenda for negotiations. And fifth, that a set of rules will be drafted for the demilitarized area with an international commission for the verification. Before I outline my government's peace agenda, let me say a few words about this area, which has received quite a bit of distorted international publicity. The area is not, repeat, not a de facto handing over of a territory or sovereignty to the FARC. As I said before, Colombia's sovereignty and territory are not negotiable. Our common goal is a national reconciliation, not a division. If any peace process is to succeed, all parties must put aside their past animosities and fears and strive to create a sense of trust. This takes more than time. It takes concrete actions. The area was created to serve as the scenario for negotiations in the spirit of security and trust. The government's decision to create it is a unique experiment among the different peace processes that have taken place in the world in the last years. Now let me return to my government peace plans. As I promised during my campaign, a Pastrana administration will act swiftly and decisively to establish concrete steps to support a workable peace process. And these we have done. We have also called for a national-wide alliance for peace and against crime to protect human rights, combat corruption, illicit drugs, and social injustice, and in this way create a viable environment for peace. Essential to my government's peace initiative is what we have called the Colombia Plan, a veritable Marshall Plan of social and economic development directed toward those regions hardest hit by violence. The plan will promote action and investment on various fronts for the short and the long term in such areas as agriculture and infrastructure, to strengthen our civil society and to reach out and protect our citizens. At the same time, the Plan Colombia will support programs that promote a culture for peace in education and at the municipal level. And to help finance all these efforts, the plan has created a peace fund as a financial tool to complement the actions of the state and to allow all citizens and the international community to contribute. The fund was designed as a way to channel resources quickly and effectively to the regions in the greatest need. Equally important is the need for political reform, and my administration is pushing ahead with comprehensive measures that the Colombian people want and deserve. This means a greater transparency of all our institutions and an all-out assault on corruption. These two issues go hand in hand to invigorate our democracy. We must not only open it to everyone and ensure greater access, but also make it more accountable and make sure that those who try to corrupt the system at any level feel the full force of the law. This means that we must preserve separation of powers between all major branches of the state that will reinforce independence of opinion, legitimacy of the opposition, and accountability of action. We must also work to promote deeper decentralization, which means that every citizen has immediate access to the decisions that affect them most. It is also important in today's globalized and interconnected world to involve the international community in our efforts, as happened in other successful peace processes. Whether to help facilitate negotiations, provide experts, finance initiatives, or act as official observers, the international community can and should exercise a supportive role. Our industrialized neighbors to the north, Canada included, can play a valuable part here, both independently and with Colombia's private sector, to generate development and offer opportunity in the name of the enlightened self-interest. Rise on the rural population and driven thousands of families from their homes and villages. This is why, as part of our larger efforts to secure peace and promote reconciliation among all Colombians, we must work to reinforce the legitimate authority of the state throughout the entire country. And the state cannot tolerate paramilitary groups who pose a serious threat to the peace process and whose blatant disregard for human rights will not go unpunished. I have been very clear about this. They must cease such atrocities immediately. The government will continue its efforts to hold them accountable and bring them to justice. We must ensure that our system is strong enough to enforce the fundamental right of all our citizens. If human rights allegations are ignored, dismissed, or buried in red tape, then the very institution created to safeguard our freedoms have become accessories to the crime. This is why we must guarantee that every case is heard and solved. And finally, we must remain clear that Colombia is fighting two distinct wars. The first is with the guerrilla, whose origins are politically and social, and we whom we can negotiate as part of pledge to put an end to violence, reform our political institutions, and provide economic assistance, in a word, to rebuild our society. The second is against the illegal drug trade, whose origins are criminal and with whom we will never negotiate. Their threat to our society and to the world at large requires a unified multilateral fight that we can and we will win. Our goal is nothing less than a new Colombia. We must build upon past strengths on a tested devotion to democracy and respect for the individual, complemented by new initiatives to reform these very institutions, to ensure that the benefit of all Colombians are not just for a few of them. We must bring this reformed and accountable state to the areas that have been hit by years of violence and neglect. We must provide better roads and better services, better education, guarantees of security and opportunities to work, alternatives to insurgency and harvesting illicit crops. We must help those who have been driven from their land to return, and we must engage the world in terms of investment, industry and trade to bring the best the world has to offer to these regions that have lied so long in poverty and isolation while exporting our own products and services to fair and open markets. I believe the time is ripe to achieve peace in Colombia, to create the kind of country we so richly deserve as we enter a new century and a new millennium. I am devoting nearly all my time and energy to this end and openly welcome your interest and your support. Thank you very much.
Pero también aquí se han escuchado críticas de las ONG al accionar guerrillero. ¿Cuál es la percepción que tiene hoy de lo que ocurrió ayer en Cali?
A ver, la crítica que es lo que estamos haciendo no solamente, insisto, Colombia, sino que está haciendo el mundo. Es decir, hay más que crítica, yo digo un gran rechazo a este tipo de actos, como los que está haciendo el Ejército de Liberación Nacional. Reiterar lo que dije ayer, estos son hechos de guerra y no son hechos de paz. Y el país lo que había entendido era precisamente que el Ejército de Liberación Nacional estaba comprometido también en la búsqueda del tema de la paz, y lo que vemos es que están dedicados precisamente a generar hechos de guerra. Por eso, como todo el país, la comunidad internacional comienza ya a rechazar este tipo de actitudes. Lo comenzamos a vivir aquí, lo estamos viviendo por comunicados, inclusive ONGs, organismos internacionales, condenando este hecho, y por eso reitero que deben liberar inmediatamente a todos y cada una de las personas que tienen secuestradas. En nuestro caso, yo he mantenido permanente contacto con el comandante de las Fuerzas Militares, hemos mantenido permanentemente contacto con el ministro delegatario. Hoy se va a celebrar un Consejo de Seguridad y reiterar desde aquí que a los amigos del Valle de Cali le estamos brindando toda la colaboración y todo el respaldo en lo que esté al alcance del gobierno. Igualmente está encargado directamente el operativo el comandante del Ejército, y él también tiene todo el respaldo y, como hemos dicho, toda la colaboración. Esperamos pues claramente que podamos resolver lo más pronto esta situación para bien de todos los colombianos.
Presidente, ¿cómo cree usted?
Usted ha dicho hoy que quiere negociar con estas dos organizaciones. ¿El ELN también está incluido entonces?
Pero veámoslo en contexto, es decir, yo he dicho que estamos dispuestos a negociar siempre y cuando se liberen todos los secuestrados, no solamente los del día de ayer, sino también los del avión. Lo que es claro es que bajo presiones este gobierno no negocia, ni vamos a negociar. Y por eso, con violaciones del derecho internacional y humanitario, como las que estamos viviendo por parte del Ejército de la Liberación Nacional, con delitos de lesa humanidad, no vamos a negociar y no vamos a dejarnos ejercer ninguna presión. Por eso reiterarle al Ejército de Liberación que libere a los secuestrados y busquemos los mecanismos verdaderamente para buscar la reconciliación entre todos los colombianos.
A nivel internacional, ¿cómo queda el ELN con este hecho?
Yo creo que se reitera precisamente que está violando el derecho internacional humanitario, precisamente que está violando y que está cometiendo delitos de lesa humanidad. Y claramente yo creo que esto no es lo que está buscando el Ejército de Liberación, porque ya la comunidad internacional va a comenzar precisamente como lo está haciendo a rechazarlos. Claramente se está calificando como un grupo terrorista, y esto le va a cerrar las puertas a nivel internacional, como comienza ya a sentirse, como vemos las declaraciones y las reacciones de la comunidad.
Usted ha dicho que no habla con los paramilitares hoy también aquí en la universidad. ¿Y qué pasa con Piedad Córdoba?
Reiteramos, con Piedad Córdoba fue claro, inclusive antes de venirme a Colombia, hablamos con el doctor Serpa, para una vez más reiterarle, estuvimos hablando con el presidente del Congreso, con el presidente del Partido Conservador, para que en el caso de la senadora Piedad Córdoba se le brindara, como hemos brindado, toda la colaboración al doctor Serpa frente a la ayuda humanitaria, a la gestión humanitaria que él quiere realizar, y claramente, pues, una vez más le dimos respaldo. Y insistir igualmente a las autodefensas de Colombia que liberen, como corresponde, inmediatamente, sana y salva, a la senadora Piedad Córdoba.
Pero el gobierno no negocia con paramilitares.
Presidente, hay quienes cuestionan su presencia en el exterior con esta clase de actos. ¿Tiene alguna respuesta?
Principles to promote diversity and defend multiculturalism, to advance the cause of women generally, and to expand contacts with the rest of the world. You have fulfilled of these and much more. What has become the largest bilingual university in North America is also an important center for high learning with an international reputation for excellence. Colombians are more than just tired of the conflict. Their desire and determination to work for peace led to the largest voter, as you said, turnout in Colombia's history. First, for a national referendum for peace, and then in the presidential elections. My government's mandate is unprecedented. The people have spoken loud and clear. They want peace, and they want your increased interest in Colombia and hope for even more exchange than already exists. I have come here to talk about peace, in particular, about my government's efforts to bring an honorable end to an armed insurgency that has raged in Colombia for almost 40 years now. The prospects has never been better. Our nation will never stronger. Wherever I go as part of my dual mission to increase understanding about our peace process and promote investment and trade, I always enjoy the chance to visit a university and talk with students and faculty who are often the toughest audiences. The University of Ottawa, since its founding as the College of Bytown 150 years ago, has stood for very clear
Andrés Pastrana.
Let me begin by thanking the University of Ottawa for the invitation to speak here today. Since my election last August,